All right. Well, I just started recording. That's all right.
Yeah, we got a message on the screen saying recording started.
All right. Well, it's been almost a year since I last spoke to you.
Yeah.
What have you been up to in the past year?
Uh, well, we've been dealing partly with the new album that's about to come out on prophecy,
Okay.
and also their 25th anniversary concert that they just had a few weeks ago in a cave in the Volva cave. Fantastic location, and it was all the artists from their label, and it's a lot of doomers and heavy, dark metal, but really lovely festival indeed.
But the album that you're talking about is coming out under what moniker?
It comes out under prophecy,
Oh,
and it will be. Hold on a minute, please, Claire. Can I tell them the title? Oh, Claire, unavailable. I'll tell you the title, and then if it's we're not supposed to give it out yet, we'll let you know.
okay.
It's just called The Long, Long Road.
Okay. And is this an Arthur Brown record?
It is, yeah. And
okay.
I've put it together with a good friend of mine, Rick Patton, who's
Okay.
just an amazing musician.
Have things opened up in London? I mean, is the pandemic pretty much under control there?
Well, as much as it's under control anywhere,
Right.
I mean, really, after 2 years, you just have to admit there is scientific evidence this way, scientific evidence that way. Nobody knows still why it came out, how it came out, and as to what the full intention is regarding it, it's impossible to say at the moment. They tried the stop downs. Of course, the economy starts to go down, so you can't do that for too long. And so they basically left it up to the individual citizens to do what they felt was right in that situation. And of course, there were certain things they asked everybody to do, like wearing masks in certain places. But all of that is up and down and in and out,
It sounds, yeah. It sounds very similar to how it is here.
Yeah, I think it's the same everywhere.
Yeah.
And yeah, very, very strange time. And a lot of soul searching going on when things are not, clear and definite and one answer for it, then the soul searching starts.
I noticed that there's a new compilation album out called Eternal Messenger, which covers your early 70s output with Kingdom Come. Was that something that you had been wanting to get out there?
Yeah, it's done through my basic back catalog is with Cherry Red Records, and so they have another company that they funnel out through called Esoteric, who's been putting out good music for a long time, and so it's come out basically on Cherry Red, but through Esoteric, Mark Powell, and it's 3 albums made by Kingdom Come. There's the album that covers the getting together of the musicians, and jamming and doing and all that, and finding the ones that we're going to actually play on the record.
Uh-huh.
And then another album of BBC tapes, and a good piece of writing by Malcolm Dome. It's very good indeed. And so, you open your own box sets with some trepidation, thinking, oh, I wonder what this, but actually I was very happy with it, and so is Claire.
Great.
It's well put together, and very good on the history.
So it's everything that that band ever released?
Yes, even I think it's everything. We may find a few, pieces that we didn't come across this time, but basically we've got one single, of which the other side is called ID side to B side, the C side. And we just wanted to include all the alphabet, really.
Great.
And to have
I noticed that there's a re-recording of Fire with Brian Auger, James Williamson of the Stooges, and Carmine at Peace from Vanilla Fudge, who I just interviewed a few months ago. Yeah, how did that come about?
Well, as I say, I've signed a deal with Prophecy for, it'll take me through about another 2 years. But there was included in that deal the ability to make this album with Cleopatra, who are, they were last year voted the top label in LA, I think it was, yeah. And so I've done, it was basically started out as a sort of new version of tracks from about 1950, early 50s, horror tunes. And it's sort of fun when it's done their way. The older tunes are spoofs, really. But this involved a lot of great musicians. Each track is different, and a different. There are 1, 2, 3 people who produced it in layers, and it's probably got about 20 well-known musicians on it, I think.
Are you talking about an album?
Yeah.
Okay, and the album, you're talking about the re-recording of Fire on a particular new album.
That as far as I know, that is coming out on that album. It's certainly joined to it in spirit, and it's put together in the same way. So that one was done basically as the part of the soundtrack of one of those B-grade horror movies that on a rainy day you put it on and half watch it.
Okay.
And so it did have some favorite people there. Brian Auger was always someone I wanted to play with, and Carmine and I were going to put something together in about 1985, I think it was, and the other people are also they're sort of monsters in their field. So it's quite an interesting way to put an album together.
It sounds like you must have some association with Vanilla Fudge, since you worked with Mark Stein not long ago too.
Yeah, well, of course we were playing festivals around about the same time as Vanilla Fudge, and we've also played with them over the last 10 years, quite often on the same festivals in Germany.
Uh-huh. Okay.
And yeah, and we did a track called, what was it called? It was Mama, Mama, and behold, help, I just swallowed the something yelp. It's one of those things that's like a golem.
A golem?
Yeah, you know, the creatures that were made to serve the horror master. And so it was a spoof on that. Yeah. And of course, you know, they're all great players.
Yes. Yeah, for sure.
And some of them are great singers as well.
You mentioned a festival recently, and I wanted to ask you about something I read not long ago. You would occasionally shed your clothes back in the old days, and
Yes.
were you you were even arrested for it at a festival in 1970.
Yeah, yeah.
What
Yes,
was going through your head at the time?
well, you know, it was sort of after the Lennons had done, you know, the Lennons had done their cover, and I thought, yeah, that's beautiful. Of course, the body is a beautiful thing, and there's a great sketch somewhere by Dave Allen who says, imagine if when the God in the Bible, in that edition, says, because of this wicked thing you've got here, you need to you're going to suffer. Well, he said, why did he pick that? Why didn't, for instance, if he had his nose, then everybody would have to wear sort of underwear over the nose, and the rest of them would be naked. And it was just sort of a way of saying, well, you know, the body is a beautiful thing.
Yeah, there's no shame in nudity.
No, I'm not sort of. I don't bother doing it nowadays.
Yeah, it seems to be more of a thing to do when you're younger.
Yeah, although I've known communities where a lot of them are older, and they by that time it's no different than people wearing clothes. You know, it's like part of the daily thing. Oh yeah, oh, like that. You know.
Yes. I lost my train of thought now. Had a question for you, but well, let's move on. So
Okay.
I wanted to ask you about the formation of Kingdom Come. I think the Crazy World of Arthur Brown broke up in '69, I think.
Yes.
Yeah, and did you ever consider just continuing with that same band name just because you were the focal point of the band?
Not really, because at that time I considered, you know, Vincent and Carl Palmer had gone off and formed
Atomic Rooster.
Rooster, and that was a successful band. And I just thought, well, I've moved on as a person, so I'd like to write new stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a strange thing, really, because I didn't know whether I wanted to form a band or go and live in this monastery, the Tibetan monastery in Scotland. And I went out into the meadow of the place that I was living, and I saw an angel. And so what resulted from that was that, oh, I'm definitely, the way for me is I'm going to form a band. And that's what I did. Yeah, and that meant putting together a group of people. And yeah.
So, so then who joined the band?
Well, you see, it was a process. First of all, I went in and did before deciding that, yeah, it all had to be new, I went into the studio and I did a recording with some people that just came together. And the occasioning of that was that Drazen Thika, who was the drummer of the Crazy World before Carl Palmer, and who got, you might say, spiked with some wicked substances. And in the end, he had to leave. And so move on a year and a half, he came back to England. He, in the meantime, having played with Arthur Lee of Love, Graham Bond, and various other people. So he had a good time while he was not with me at all. But then we decided we'd just get some people together and see what came out in the studio. And Giorgio Gomelsky, who was the proprietor, I think, of Marmalade Records, where Julie Driscoll and Brian Auger were, and who was a very influential figure in English rock history. He was the one who did the Yardbirds, for instance, and For Your Love, For Your Love. That was Giorgio Gomelsky's doing, and so he had been in at the beginning of the experimental music that led into the 60s. So he heard it and said, "Oh, I'll put together a tour in France for you." So we went and did the tour in France, and I did call that one the Crazy World, because although the music was a bit different, we did, for the sake of the tour, so that the audience would recognize at least one thing, the Fire track. And the tour resulted from the Communist Party in France had to deal with the situation of the revolution over there. And so they were putting these tours on to show that the youth was now not wanting to be in revolution. So they had the Pink Floyd, the Soft Machine, ourselves, and I can't remember who the fourth. It was 4 bands not playing on the same night, just separate tours. And that was one of the occasions where I did take off my clothes. And this woman, this old lady who was about 70, was sitting next to Giorgio Gomelsky. And when I came out in that nude state, she sort of fell And so Georgia got up, "Are you all right, madam? Are you all right?" And she said, "Oh, yes. Oh, yes." She said, "Now, I have seen two naked men in my life. First my husband, and now this man." And so at that point, yeah, we had meetings with the heads of the Communist Party, and slightly changed the act, and I didn't come on naked anymore.
Okay.
Because they said, "We have already lost one seat in the government as a result of this, and so we would ask you not to." And I
What do you
thought,
mean you
well,
lost one seat in the government?
they did, the Communist Party, and
Oh, I
it was
see.
local elections at that time, and this was enough to dissuade some people from the communist government.
Wow.
And so they asked, "Look, you know, the elections are still going on. Please, if you," he said, "if it is a moral, absolute moral decree in your heart that you must do this, then do it. But please, we are asking you." And I thought, well, they're the ones who put this tour together. They are trying to do something of some value. Yeah, I'll just not do it. So anyway, we got back to England. That band kind of disintegrated, but let me see who from that. The bass player stayed, and I think for some time Dracian Thika was there, but then he left again, and so the bass player was the initial person who remained after that lot of tours. And then we did another session in the studio, again, just a long jam with only the instructions, my instructions, where we're traveling from the country into the city. So that's what you got to play. And certain songs came out of that, quite amazing, full songs, totally spontaneously created. And then various other things came in. And that gave me enough to go to English. Polydor said, "No, we're not putting this out." So went to Germany with my new manager then, and met the head of German Polygram, and played them this tape that we just put together. And he said, Horst Schmulze was the boss at that time, as I recall. And he said, "You've done it once before, you can do it again. So here's the deal." And gave us, 3-album deal, one a year. And there was enough money from that to rent a warehouse in Covent Garden in London. And we decked it out with sound equipment and lighting. And from there, went through a series of musicians. We had, for instance, the first drummer who was playing, because Dracian then had gone, was called Andy McCulloch, and he'd just come from King Crimson. I think that was the Lark's Tongue in Aspic album, I think I'm correct. And we had various musicians, and over a period of 4 months, we wrote all the songs, and we made the stage act. We got it all and put in the imagery, the crucifixions on the cross.
Oh, okay.
The guitarist was a telephone, which would ring during the act, and I would pick up the phone, and I would talk to him, and his voice would come out of the phone, and we'd be talking and singing, and so various things like that came about, and yeah. So for some of the time we had for about some months after that, Dave Ambrose, the bass player with Brian Auger, played in the band. But we came out of that whole thing with the first album, the Galactic Zoo Dossier.
Yeah. Okay. So that's the formation of Arthur Brown's Kingdom Come.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you, I mean, you just touched upon the religious imagery, and I'm not religious at all. I've never read the Bible, but I recognize Kingdom Come as something biblical.
It is, but it was also a reference to, having gone away with and been in America for about 6 months, and then the crazy world terminated, and coming with a new band that was doing new material. By then, we didn't, in Kingdom Come, we didn't do Fire or any of the Fire material. So we had to create a whole new audience. Yeah, that was the material from that. I've forgotten where I was.
Well, people certainly knew your name, and I assume they knew that you were very theatrical.
Yes.
So they had some idea what to expect.
They did, but it was a different kind of music.
Yes.
So we lost 3/4 of the audience who didn't like the new kind of music, but we built it up again to where there was a good audience again.
Well, was there like a religious theme to the band?
Not as such, no. Although the title Kingdom Come is the name of the band, it is a religious statement as such. It was like coming back to England from America, having separated from Carl and Vince, and then thinking, well, that's quite a long time. By the time I got the band together, as far as doing concerts in England, it was probably about a year and a half, and that's, in those days, that was a long time to not be playing.
Right.
And so I remember being down in Glastonbury with the bass player Dennis Taylor, and he said, "Well, if you're going to form a new band, what's going to be the title of it?" And I thought, well, it's almost like I've come back here. I started doing all the theatrical rock, and now I left it behind. So I'm coming back. Almost like to claim what I created, my kingdom, my theatrical kingdom. So I said, I'll call it Kingdom. And then Dennis said, well, if you're going to call it, you might as well call it Kingdom Come. It's something that is lodged in some people's minds. And of course, it does deal with some spiritual things.
Right. So it sounds like it had a double meaning.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And also let's say the side of music at that time where you might get ripped off by the company representing you financially. My manager said he thought that was a bit like a crucifixion. And the stage act kind of, in part, and it was also to do with if you had certain beliefs about society and stuff, that was a period where the government didn't like that. And so there was a feeling of, crucifixion. There was a lot of the people in that movement, the underground, and particularly the leader of it, ended up in jail for 7 years until the whole underground thing had, become less than it was.
Mm-hmm.
And so the theme of crucifixion was in there.
In your stage show?
In some of the lyrics, yeah.
Oh, in some of the lyrics,
and,
okay.
And the stage show, yeah.
Yeah.
So whether you believe in one religion or another, that's up to everybody, isn't it?
Yes.
Or whether you don't, like you say, if you don't believe that.
Well, yeah, I just wanted to get some clarification about, like, whether there were religious overtones to that band.
What it partly devolved from was that, of course, as you say, the band broke up in America. I was over there when, Bobby Kennedy was departed from the planet.
Mm-hmm.
Various other people were killed, of course. And the pictures of the Vietnam War direct from the battlefield started to appear for a short while on TV itself. And it was like so shocking in those days because it wasn't the kind of thing that appeared on a news program at all. And so the idea that, the peace marches, the ideas for how to live in a different way, looking after nature, all of those things that were part of the underground. There were other people who believed in them who weren't part of the underground, but they were there as almost the core of the underground. Those things clashed. And the Kent State riot was where it crashed most evidently.
Mm-hmm.
And so those things had been milling around in my mind.
Mm-hmm.
And I came back to England, and which was not in the same state as America, but had some of the same things going on, which led into Reagan and Thatcher and, all the massive changes in social structure and stuff. And so one of the ideas not just the ideas, one of the ways of some of the people living in the underground was a kind of spiritual vision. And it underlay the idea that the human being is creative, is, exploratory,
Mm-hmm.
and that society itself should be made in that form. They were stamped on, and so part of the album reflects all that. but behind it was this kind of spiritual vision.
And you're referring to Galactic Zoo Dossier?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, you played a role in the movie Tommy as a priest, coincidentally. I didn't know that when I talked to you previously. How did that come up? Did you have to audition for that? Or did you just get that on the basis of your theatrical background and knowing Pete Townsend and so forth?
Well, Tommy was a funny thing, because when I met Pete, I was dealing with the fire theme.
Mm-hmm.
He was dealing with something that I think was around then, and it was called Rael, and it was about China, and it had a theatrical lead player. So initially, I was supposed to be Tommy, and then Kit Lambert and I separated, left the management and everything, and he felt that whereas Pete was thinking of a lead solo singer, he said, no, Lambert said, no, we've got to keep it for the band. Keep it for the band. And so when it came to Ken Russell being appointed director and everything, he took on, okay, we've got Roger is the lead figure, Pete, and then we've got all these other people playing different parts, Jack Nicholson and all the other people in.
Mm-hmm. Tina Turner.
And,
yeah. Okay.
Who was phenomenal. And so at one time, Pete wanted me to do the priest. But then it became the case that the finance for the movie was got through Robert Stigwick. And he, of course, managed Eric Clapton. And so it came about that Clapton was the preacher. That's it. That's what his role was in the Marilyn Monroe scene. But after he did some part of it, I don't know why. There are lots of people giving different reasons, but I don't know what the real one is. He didn't do the whole of the song, and so I was called in, and I had the pleasure of working with Ken Russell, and he's quite a character, and so that's how I sang the part of the priest.
Okay, so you replaced Eric Clapton, basically.
Well, yeah, he did some of it, and then I took over from it.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Yeah, because he did the first half really, and he was the preacher, and then for some reason he didn't do the rest, and of course he'd had a beard, which I had, so there wasn't too much of a visual discontinuity there.
Oh, okay. You were playing the same character that he played?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't realize that.
But it was the same song. He came sort of into the grotto as in his priest garb, and then it does the scene right in front of with Marilyn Monroe, and then that's me.
Okay. You recorded with the Alan Parsons Project
Yes.
also. Yeah. What year was that, and what was the song?
I think that there was 76, and it
Uh-huh.
was Telltale Heart from the first Alan Parsons album, The Tales of Mystery and Imagination. And the
Okay.
song was written by Eric Wolfson.
Okay. Yeah, that's the one that has all the Edgar Allan Poe uh,
Yes.
stuff on it. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
And yeah, so that was Alan. I think that was the first time I'd met him. And so I got in there and he put on the track and I did, I think it was second take.
Uh-huh.
But then I was living somewhere in the middle of Gloucestershire. And I got a call saying, we need you to come in tomorrow morning at 8:30 in the morning. I said, what do you want me to do? And he said, well, at the end there, we didn't quite get the big screen in its entirety. So we would like you to do another big screen. And so I got up at about 5:30, drove to the studio, strode forward, delivered a big screen, and that was what appeared on the album. And it was yeah, it worked. It worked.
Great. Wow. That's a lot of effort for a screen. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you know, those filming people, they're so extravagant.
Yes. You know, I've noticed that your music is sometimes described as psychedelic soul, like in all on allmusic.com. I don't know if you've seen that, but I found that kind of interesting and a little bit perplexing too, because you seem like a rock artist to me. Not that your singing isn't soulful, it is. Um, but there are other artists that are rock artists who haven't had that label applied to them. You know, I know you did I Put a Spell on You, and I think your song Sunrise is very soulful. How did how do you think that you got labeled with that term psychedelic soul?
Well, because you know, I started in music in a trad jazz band playing
Mhm.
bass, and then started singing, then took classical stuff, then joined a mod band, and we were doing various things, and it was during that period that James Brown with Papa's Got a Brand New Bag, It's a Man's World, all of that came out.
Mhm.
And so it was part of the sets that we used to do, because I also during that period was also a member of the Ramong Sound, who at the time I left changed their name to the Foundations and had all those hits. Do you know the Foundation? Baby, now that I've found you, I can let you
Oh yes,
go.
I know that song. Yeah.
And build me up, buttercup, baby.
Oh yeah. Okay. Yes,
Yeah.
I know the Foundation then.
And so the basis of their music was some R&B in the modern way, but also soul. And
Uh-huh.
so we do a lot of Otis Redding, Wilson Pickett, you know. And so I did. I sang a lot of soul,
Uh-huh.
and I loved it. I thought it was great music. And when the Crazy World started, we also did some of the soul pieces and some Nina Simone pieces, who was she was jazz, blues, and soul. So I think that's why it was a style that I had absorbed and loved, and I sang a lot of it. Just before and during the beginning of the Crazy World.
I see. Okay. I also read that you moved to Africa in 1979.
Yeah.
What inspired you to do that?
I wanted to go and find the real people who knew the meaning of the African dances. And so I went to Burundi, and for about maybe a week, I was leader of the Burundi orchestra, which turned out to be, of course, I'd forgotten the French word orchestra is band. And so it was about a 10-piece soul band, which was doing funk and soul. And I also did some teaching there of the history of music, and how the Western ballad forms and musical forms for folk came together with the African rhythms. And in Burundi, they play this thing that looks a bit like a wooden tea tray with round ends, and one string is all the way, and so the string's longer in the middle and shorter at each end, and then you play it with your thumbs and your fingers, and it's quite an amazing instrument. And that later, Adam and the Ants used that music form. That was what they based their music on.
Okay. I think I know what you're talking about. I can hear it in one of their songs.
Yeah.
Like Goody Two Shoes, is it used in that?
I think it was that one, yeah.
Yeah.
And they call it the Burundi beat. It wasn't at that time, So I had great fun bringing in traditional musicians and saying to the class, listen to Howling Wolf. Now listen to this. And exactly the same rhythm from the tribe. And so you've got an idea that, some people came from a different country with their own folk rhythms, joined into the, what became rock and roll, and that's how the music developed. And because I had a lot of African students in the class, as well as European, and they all thought at that time, that the Rolling Stones music and all of that's Western. And if I asked them who made it, they would say, the Western people. And I said, well, just listen to this. No, it's a blending of the two musics. And so I found that kind of quite exciting as an exploration for myself.
How long were you in Africa?
Only about between 6 months and a year.
Okay. I also saw that you moved to Austin, Texas in the US at one point.
Yeah, I was there for a long time, over 10 years. And of course, when I got there, which was about 80, 182. If you went to 6th Street, in that time, Austin was not built up like New York or anything. Now it's getting much more like a big city. It was like an outback, you know. But along this one street, 6th Street, in say about 42 houses or properties, some of them were bigger than houses, different style of music, all live, every building. And then there was the big one, the Armadillo, and you had all kinds of people. Willie Nelson was already there on his ranch, and then Stevie Ray Vaughan didn't come till later, and yeah, there were a lot of the older blues guys came there. There was one who was 92, and he arrived there. He was called Grey Ghost, because he was one of the guys who just traveled endlessly, playing in whatever establishment. He was a keyboard player and singer, and then he would be put up, lodged by that early in the morning or late at night. If you got there in the afternoon and slept, after the gig, he would just suddenly disappear and he would jump on a train. He was a train jumper, no ticket, and get to his next gig.
Even at 92.
Yeah, and he ended up in a railway car on a plot of land, and people used to come, and there was only about, say, 40 people in the night would come and see him, but it was always full.
Well, Austin is, of course, known as the live music capital of the world. Were you like a part of that music scene there for the duration of your time there?
Yeah, I had for some time a band with Jimmy Carl Black of the Mothers of Invention.
Right. Yeah.
I had another band which had a different lineup, but the guitarist was from the underground band of the 60s, Spirit.
Yes. John
Staheli, and his brother was a lawyer, and he was the bass player from Spirit. So they both lived in Austin, and we had a band together. And yeah, no, there was, I didn't do any touring. No, I was.
Well, I mean, did you perform live with local musicians and so forth while you were there?
Yeah, but not like, constantly. Just now and again. I was more concentrating on the. I went into construction.
Oh.
But in my case, it was like carpentry and house painting, and that was my focus for that period.
All right. Well, what's next for you?
Well, you mentioned soul music.
Yes.
This coming up in about 10 days is a concert of soul classics that I'm doing down in the Pizza Express, which has got a room. It's quite small, it's about 120 people, but the amount of great musicians that play there, it's become a very important place. It's not
an unlikely place.
an unlikely place indeed.
Yes.
Yeah. But I think their theme was, well, you know, we get a flow of people through here eating. We can increase the flow, and then make it sort of like the old jazz diner, you know, where you dine and some musicians that people love play there.
All right. Well, I want to
And
thank you. Oh, go ahead.
yeah, which is that in December, yeah, November, December, I've got about 4 concerts with the Hamburg Blues Band, which is, yeah, that's been delighting the blues audiences and R&B audiences in Germany for about 25 years, and I've been, you know, singing with them. I like singing that stuff, and also sings Chris Farlow.
Who's that?
Chris Farlow.
Okay.
He, let me see. At the time when Otis Redding was singing, he was one of the few people that Otis Redding invited to sing with him from the English singers.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, he had about 3 hits, and one of them was written for him by the Rolling Stones, and so he was yeah. And he also sang with Colosseum.
With who?
Colosseum. It's the you know, jazz rock.
Oh, okay.
And he was one of the great early singers in the Flamingo Club.
All right.
Where Georgie Fame became famous. So he sings Maggie Bell, who was one of the great rock singers in England from about 1970 onwards. And then various other people that are noteworthy singers in that style of music. You know?
Uh-huh. And this is these are people that you're going to be working with in the near future?
Well, I do you know, evenings with them.
Uh-huh.
And so there's 4 of those between now and I think December the 17th. But also we've got the Crazy World tour, the modern Crazy World, the present one, which is a multimedia piece. It's a show, and it has incredible lights and projections and theater, and we'll take songs from all the way through my career, and then some new material as well. And we've played that out about 6 times, maybe 8 times so far, and the reception has been amazing. So we've got a tour in England in May, June coming up.
Great. All right.
Claire is the creative director of this show.
Uh-huh.
And it's been concerned with the building of all the visual images and how the interface between the music and the lights
Uh-huh.
and the visual imagery. We're lucky enough to have got a great visual guy, Andy Clark, who before that, one of his major things was doing the visuals for Yes. and he's just an incredibly creative person, and the musicians are two of them were with the band that we did Zim Zam Zim, the album. It was an experimental album that registered quite strongly in Europe. And then the keyboard player is he had two recent bands, Heliocentrics and, I can't remember the other one. What, Claire?
Yeah.
What was the name of Dan's other band?
Noisettes.
The which what's?
The Noisettes.
Yes, the Noisettes.
Okay.
With that band, he had cut a few hits in England recently. So,
Okay.
and he is quite amazing. And then the bass player is Jim Mortimer, who I played with for about 10 years on and off. And the drummer is Sam Walker.
And this is the current touring version of The Crazy World?
Yes, indeed. Yeah, and
Okay.
it has experimental electronic overtones.
Uh-huh.
So it is really a dramatic whole thing, the show.
Well, I wish I could see it.
We are currently looking out agency for playing across the world. So
Well, that'd be great.
it would.
Yeah, I'd love to see it. I know a lot of people would.
One moment, just let me ask. Claire,
Okay.
have I missed anything out?
I don't know. I hope you've had a nice time.
Oh, good. She has to listen to all my interviews. So
Oh, I didn't listen.
she didn't listen at all to this one. So we'll see it when it comes out. Yeah, but she can't therefore tell me that I missed anything.
Okay. All right. Well,
but yeah, that's where that new album will be coming out, and some of that, one or two pieces from that will be in the show. We're expanding it, and then I've got to write a new album for Prophecy, which is going to be an experimental one.
and that will come out under which moniker?
The first one with Prophecy it's been a long road, and the second one I haven't got the title of yet.
Okay.